Check out the links in my description for more information, for more resources. Check out the podcast. Check out the Facebook groups. Just check out the links. There's a lot of great stuff there. Comment, rate, subscribe, share, like, dislike, whatever you want to do. This is my few Zamasu Zenkai Burning Time deck. So 1 copy of the leader, 4 Ocean Shenron Energy, 4 Shenron Figure Majesty, 4 Android 17 Turn of Tide, 4 Vegeta Ready Rumble, 4 Gohan Baby's Minion, 4 Gohan Power Unshackled, 4 King Vegeta the Distrustful, 4 Goku Overflowing Spirit, 4 Goku and Vegeta Satan Synergy, 4 Chill's Army Reinforcement, 4 Super Pycon True Mastery, 4 Rash Giant Force, 4 Majin Agents of Destruction, 4 Gotenks Absolute Unison, and 4 Super Saiyan 4 Protector the Earth Goku. So the Z deck, you got 2 copies of Viru's Area Annihilator, 2 copies of Cell Awakening of the Agent, 2 copies of Angel 21 in the Name of Hunger, and 1 copy of Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta Godly Spirit. So, should already know what the leader can do. You're not going to use it actively, but once you get to 2 or less life, you awaken. So that way, you're on your awaken side, and on your awaken side, whenever you take damage, you mill the top 5 cards of your deck for every damage you take. So the goal is, of course, well, ideally you want to keep your life points high, but once you get to 2, then you awaken, that you're on your second life health bar, right? And then once you're here, you obviously want to gain life back afterwards. You don't want to stay at a low life. You want to at least gain 1 life after you awaken, so you can at least be at 3 life. So if you get your opponent down to 2 life and time runs out, you win, right? You get them down to 1 life, that kind of stuff. The main thing is always make sure they're 1 life lower than yours so you can win in time, because we're taking the tournaments to account, right? So keep that in mind. So the time burn part of the deck comes from using things that have dual attacks, using effects, taking your time on your turn, playing a whole bunch of effects, right? Activating a whole bunch of abilities, doing a lot of different attacks, but then gain life back by the rejuvenate effect of Pycon. Right? We have another win con. Another way of winning, other than winning through time, is through turning the tide. So the idea is obviously get your opponent down to 2 life, or at least 1, and then just play turning the tide, and swinging your opponent's leader. He has crit, so your opponent won't gain. Your opponent won't gain no advantage from you dealing him damage for this, and then you can finish him off with a leader swing or a unison swing, depending on how low your opponent's life is. If you can at least get your opponent down to 3 life or 2 life, you should be able to end them out by just playing this card. It has Deflect. So, of course, you play it, both you and your opponent take your hands, put it back in your deck. That way you have no cards in your hands. So whatever's on the field is what you're playing with. I like to combo him with Goku, Protector of the Earth, if it's -1 ability, being -2 ability, where choose all your opponent's back cards, ignore and bury, and then bounce back to their hand. So that way they don't have no blockers, right? Or anything on the field they could try to use to combo with. And then you drop turn tides, and now their hand is gone. So that way they have pretty much nothing to block with, unless they have a unison or the leader has an ability to stop your attack. Basic stuff. So there's that. The Oceanus, you can win through milling your opponent out. This is a 60 card deck, so the likelihood of your opponent running out of cards before you is pretty likely. Especially if you keep dropping Oceanus on your opponent. So what else we have here? There's a lot of stuff that can be done in this deck. Obviously, we got Oceanus to floodgate our opponent, negate an attack, and it's a blocker, so it could potentially stop 2 attacks, and maybe even more, just stop your whole opponent's turn. Shamrock Figure Majesty helps us draw a card, and lets us tap 2 energy, which is the main thing we're going to do, is use it to untap energy, so that way we can always at least have 2 energy available to be able to play our Goku or Floating Spirit, another Oceanus. Obviously, you want to have energy to play your negates, you know, your Chill's Army Reinforcements, your Goku and Vegeta, which has the ability to go to the bottom of your deck. Well, you play it after you negate an attack, and then if your opponent attacks your leader, you can send this to the bottom of your deck to give your leader 5k boost into the turn, so it further gives you defense, but also goes back to the bottom of your deck, so it reduces the chance of you decking yourself out. So synergy, the leader in that regards. This Goku allows you to recycle your unison from your unison area or your drop. This King Vegeta is for the same purpose, to recycle your unisons, specifically your Python, because you want to be able to use them over and over again to keep rejuvenate. So ideally, you want to be able to play him for like 6 energy, right? Trigger his +0 ability to draw a card, and then place a card from your hand under this card. That way it has a card under it, so that way you can trigger his rejuvenate, which is, once per turn, remove 5 markers from this card, and then put a card under this card to your drop to take the top card of your deck and put it into your life. So you want to make sure he at least has 6 markers on him, so we remove 5 markers, he has 1 marker left to help, guarantee he stays on the field, just in case, just to make sure his effect works out. In case there is, I don't know, it's been a while, I don't know if there is a rule that says he has to stay on the field in order for the rejuvenate to properly resolve. If you can get away with just having 5 markers on it. So, main thing is just to make sure you can play him, rejuvenate, recycle him, play him, rejuvenate, good stuff. Raditz Giant Force can help you block 2 attacks. So that way you can obviously recycle your Pycon, like I was saying, and get all these unisons for whatever you need them for, board wipe and whatnot. You can read them, obviously, you know what their effects are. Just want to point out the basics of the deck. One of the new additions to the deck strategy is Gohan Power Shackled. He has the active main limit, 1 pay 1 blue. Place this card into the owner's drop area, which means this has to be in the battle area, right? Till the end of your opponent's next turn, your opponent can't attack with battle cards unless they choose one of their battle cards with energy cost 2 or less and place it at the bottom of their deck. At first, that sounded a little weak, but then I realized, oh no, opponent can't attack with a battle card unless they put a 2 or less at the bottom of the deck. The likelihood of your opponent having a whole bunch of 2 drops or 1 drops on their side of the field is going to be pretty slim. And remember, tokens don't have costs, so they can't use tokens to pay for this. So, likelihood to have a 3 drops, 4 drops, 8 drops, overrealm, all that stuff. They'll have a whole bunch of high costs. Basically, anything that costs 3 or higher is more likely going to not be able to attack, which is really good. So this, you can play, attack with it, and then trigger its effect. So pretty much for a total of 4 energy, 3 to play it, and 1 to trigger its active main, so that way you can make sure your opponent can't, hit you back on the clapback. Granted, unisons and leaders can still attack, but the idea is to minimize how many times your opponent can attack, especially if they try to drop some overwhelm or some type of trick. Especially if they do something like a Boonie or something similar to that, where they can get a whole bunch of tokens to try to attack with. Won't be able to attack because the tokens do count as battle cards, but they don't have costs, so they won't count towards the effect. So they can't use tokens to let you attack, right? So that's very awesome in that regards. It's the fact that it's something you can trigger before your opponent's turn, so that way it slows down your opponent. Unlike other cards where your opponent could potentially try to counter, like if like Gohan or Giannis, they can try to use stuff like Gas and Trunks to try to stop these cards from hitting the field and getting their autos to, floodgate your opponent. Granted, this doesn't have deflect. I mean, Gas and Trunks is banned, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. But I'm just saying, might want to try to avoid your opponents trying to stop you from doing something. So just pointing out the fact that this is another cool card that can floodgate. So this can floodgate your opponent, this can floodgate, this can floodgate, this can floodgate. You obviously should know their facts. This can floodgate your opponent with its auto. It's the reverse version of the Gohan, where your opponent has to bottom deck a 2-cost or higher battle card in order for the battle cards to attack. This one does 2 costs or lower, so that's pretty nice. Especially if you combine these two, then that means your opponent can't attack period with battle cards, right? But already it's going to be hard for your opponent to attack with battle cards. I like this one better than this because of the fact that, the likelihood of them having low battle cards is going to be slim, close to, as opposed to having high battle cards. So it's pretty nice to have that option. Plus this has combo power. The list goes on of all the usefulness. Nothing much else to say other than, let's go to the Z deck. We have some new card, Android 21. She's a blocker, so it's nice to have a blocker we can play from our Z deck. Has Z stack 2 battle cards, which means you place 2 cards under her as materials, essentially, right? And she has a permanent where you can use your opponent's battle cards for that effect. So you can take 2 of your opponent's battle cards and bottom deck them, and put them under this card, which makes her awesome, right? So that helps you get rid of 2 cards, 2 battle cards, sorry, and then she's a blocker, right? So that's extra nice. She has auto when this card is played. You may place the top card of your deck in your energy and rest mode and choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and place it at the bottom of the owner's deck. Obviously, we don't like the idea of bottom decking our opponent's stuff that much because we might want to deck them out. But, if it's a really problematic card, then we'll not make a big deal about it. So the fact that she can get rid of essentially up to 3 cards, just by playing her, it's really nice. So she kind of works like a board wipe. Plus, she puts up a defense because she's a 20k blocker. She has unique. She has the active main. Once per turn, choose up to 1 keyword skill on a card that is currently placed under this card, and then gain the effect until the end of the opponent's next turn. So, like, let's say one of the battle cards has barrier, then you can gain barrier. It should be a barrier blocker. Or if it has revenge, then you'd be a blocker with revenge. Dual attack, which would be nice, right? So that we can attack with her, restand, and use it to block. So you can attack and block. Triple strike, double strike, that kind of stuff. So you can use it as a finisher. So there's a lot of potential because there's a lot of keywords that you can take advantage of her having. So there's that. Cell, since she's a board wipe, that's what he's there for. He has deflect, which comes in handy. I mean, even though Guys Hitting Trucks is gone, so it's not that big of a deal anymore. But 25k crit is always good. Auto, when this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost 5 or less, and place them at the under this card. So not bottom decking, under this card, which is nice. And it does 5 or less, so it can't hit high cost cards. But that's where she comes in, which is nice to have that option. But he can, essentially board wipe. He doesn't ignore barrier, right? Checking her, yeah, he doesn't ignore barrier. And then he has the active main. Once per turn, if one or more cards are under this card and you place all of them into the owner's drop, switch this card to active mode. Additionally, if you use this card skill to place 4 or more cards into the drop, this card gains triple strike per turn. So it could become a finisher. So it could be a 25k triple strike crit. And of course, restand, so you can swing with it, trigger the active main, restand it, and then swing again. So you can potentially do 4 damage with this card alone. So can be used as a finisher, but mainly we like to use it just for the wiping ability. Views, has barrier, which comes in handy, but he has barrier 10k. When this card attacks, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost greater than their current energy and place it at the bottom of their deck. And this card gains 5k power for the turn, so it becomes 15k. So it's a good way of getting rid of, something that has a high cost. Don't bottom deck it to get it out the way. So you can see there's some board controlling in here, obviously. That's mainly what we use him for, but he does have the active main once per turn. Pay 2 blue if your opponent has 3 or more energy. Switch this card to active mode. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier. Place it at the bottom of its opponent's deck, and this card gains dual attack for the turn. So you could use him to board wipe your opponent if you play it right, because his auto to bottom deck a battle card greater than their energy cost is not once per turn, so every time you attack, you get to trigger that effect. So trigger the effect, right? Restand him with the active main ability, and then swing again. And since he's getting dual attack, you'll be able to restand again and swing again. So you could get 1, 2, and then 3, 4. So you can get 4 swings with him. So that's pretty nice. Potential 4 attacks, and potentially get rid of 4 battle cards. So it is good. So as you can see, these have board wiping potential, so they can get rid of blockers among other things, or at least potential threats. Android 21 just helps us ramp, which helps us get into our Android 21. Android 17 turns high, so there's synergy there. So that's the big important thing. It's like, yes, ramp. Gotta love ramp. Probably do the Android 20 turning the tide ramp deck, use her and Whis and whatnot to help me ramp further. Pretty much, she's a strong Whis. It's worth playing her instead of playing Whis. You can clear the board, put up a blocker, get some attacks, get some extra effects, and then ramp. So she's a better Whis. And she doesn't have to be main deck, which is nice. Then we have Vegito, Godly Spirit, Deflect, Barrier, Blocker, Triple Strike, 30k. He's just there, as a potential finisher, right? If turn tides doesn't come in clutch and whatnot. Or you end up in a situation where you're turning ties, for some reason you don't win, opponent survives, but they don't beat you on their turn, so then it's your turn and you barely have anything, then you can just be like, alright, I'll just play from my Z deck, bring this bad boy out, and just finish off your opponent. So he kind of acts like an ultimate. So it's essentially an ultimate. So there's synergy there. He does other stuff, but the main thing is just mainly a 30k triple strike with barrier. It's a blocker, so that's always useful. At the end of your turn, auto at the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and place at the bottom of the deck. And your opponent places one card from their hand at the bottom of the deck. So that's the other benefit you get. You can attack with it, still be able to defend with it, and reduce your opponent's hand size and board size as well. So a lot of fun stuff. And that's the end of the deck.